A very good afternoon to all. My name is Jazari and a warm welcome to our webinar on Mission Possible, Factory of the Future. Manufacturing in Singapore has expanded for the 13th month in a row, and Industry 4.0 is revolutionizing the way companies manufacture, improve, and distribute their products. Manufacturers are integrating enabling technologies, including Internet of Things, cloud computing, and analytics, AI, and machine learning into their production facilities and operations. In this session, our esteemed industry speakers will share insights on leveraging technology to transform your business with success story from guest speaker in the manufacturing industry, how to collect and analyze data from advanced sensors, embedded software, and robotics, ensure real-time visibility of manufacturing assets, perform predictive maintenance to minimize equipment downtime, and increase responsiveness to customers through automation and self-optimization of manufacturing process. We'd like to thank our partners, IBM and SNI Systems, and our other supporting organization, Advanced Manufacturing Training Academy, Constella and ITEC, and SPETA for making this webinar possible. Before we start the event proper, allow us to share some functions of the webinar. We are making a recording of this session and it will be available on demand in Zoom one day after the event. The presentation slides for the speakers will also be shared with the participants after the event. If you have any questions at any point of time, you may use the Zoom Q&A function and post in your questions. Please help us to indicate your name and company name when submitting the questions. We will answer to them during the Q&A segment after all the presentations have concluded. Please also do stay on with us till the very end of the webinar, as we will be announcing some free goodies for the participants at the very end of the session. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Detec Counselor and First Vice Chair for the Digital Transformation Chapter, Nicholas, to give his opening address. Nicholas has been the CEO of EasyLink since October 2011, where he oversees the company's strategic direction and growth. He drives the adoption, transactions, and applications of EasyLink, the leading contactless smart card that serve millions of commuters and consumers in Singapore daily. Over to you, Nicholas.
Thanks, Jess. And very good afternoon to everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Nicholas, as introduced, and my first task is to really talk about SGTech. So let me give you a brief overview of what SGTech is. We are a trade association set up to represent and champion the interests of the tech industry in Singapore. SGTech strives to create an ecosystem that anticipates trends and develop sustainable initiatives to strengthen and grow the industry. At SGTech, we have chapters that enable us to provide focused support to strategic and emerging industry segments, like the manufacturing segment today. And digital transformation is actually one of the areas that the chapter focuses on. The chapter aims to contribute to Singapore's strategic objective by supporting the ongoing digital transformation of the core industries of the Singapore economy. So in today's session is one of the many such outcomes of this chapter, and we will be focusing our discussion on the role of technology in the future of Singapore's manufacturing sector. Now, despite going through almost 2 years, close to 2 years of the pandemic, we have seen improvements in exports and domestic demand, which are driving growth in Southeast Asia's manufacturing sector. In Singapore, our manufacturing output increased 11.2% year-on-year, as reported in August 2021. Almost every cluster saw output growth. However, labor costs remains a challenge for Singapore, with such costs being one of the highest in the region. Technology adoption and digital transformation can help address the challenges in this sector to drive positive business outcomes for SMEs and help the sector stay competitive. So today, we have a very good panel of speakers that will share how technology can be used as an enabler for transformation and how it is helping companies solve real-world problems. So I'm certain everyone in the audience today will benefit from it. And with that, I wish everyone a very fruitful session ahead. Thank you. Back to you, Jess.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. Next, we have Ziwei, Business Development and Industry 4.0 Transformation Leader at IBM Supply Chain, to give us his presentation on Factory of the Future. It is Mission Possible. Ziwei leads a team focusing on AI cognitive solutions, especially in the area of Industry 4.0. He has more than 10 years of experience in transformation initiatives, both within IBM supply chain, as well as with clients in different industries, such as automotive, electronics, and transportation. He worked with solutions in the area of computer visual recognition, video analytics, augmented and mixed reality, and acoustic analytics. Now let us welcome Ziwei.
Thank you, Jess. Right. So today, really, what I want to do is to share, right, and introduce about the factory of the future and how it is now mission possible for us to achieve this, right, and make your operations future-proof, right? So as Jess mentioned, my name is Ziwei. I work in the area of Industry 4.0, right, looking at solutioning and helping both internal IBM supply chain to transform towards our Industry 4.0 North Star, as well as to help clients partner with them, right, towards their journey. So for Industry 4.0, I think it's no longer just a buzzword, right? Very much so. In the past few years, we've been talking about what is Industry 4 and how do we move into that. But very much now, today, right, we are already in the forefront of Industry 4.0 transformation. It is already here, right? And it is not an easy task. As you can see, right, the whole reason why it's called a revolution is because it is really upskilling from Industry 3 to Industry 4. Right, some people might think it is just instead of automation, now I have something that is even more automated, right? But it is really not so, right? It is something where you need to relook and retool both the workforce as well as the way that we are doing business. And this is very important because we do foresee that Industry 5.0 is going to come really fast, right? Because the speed of adoption is only going to be shortened and it's going to get more and more complex, so we must catch up. So there's a lot of definitions of Industry 4, but by and large, we know that there are a lot of functions about it. And Industry 4.0 is not just about automating your manufacturing line, right? It is really about an end-to-end transformation for the entire workforce, as well as how things are being done. And it is really, really hard. And that is what everybody is realizing at this point of time. And we want to work together to be able to do that, right? So at this point of time, we'd like to do a quick poll using the Zoom function. Right, so if you need to open up the your poll tab, right, take a look when we launch the poll, right, and I'd just like to ask everyone, what are the key challenges that you have encountered in your operations and manufacturing process? And you can select the ones that you think is most appropriate for you, right, whether it's making faster, better decisions with data analytics, ensuring no downtime, cost optimization, and monitoring defects and asset management. And we'll be sharing the results shortly as well to let everybody know what everybody else is thinking of. So in IBM, of course, we are a partner, right, with a lot of clients in terms of what we want to do in supply chain, and we have a lot of solutions that goes around the supply chain portion, and that has been recognized, right, by Forbes in what we are doing in terms of consultation, right, as well as putting solutions into supply chain. But more importantly for us, we are a supply chain. Within IBM, we do manage our end-to-end suppliers, right, when we look at manufacturing our server products, right, manufacturing our storage products. And we work all the way from a wafer level, building that up, right, working with suppliers, building up the electronics and putting everything together, including R&D work that we do. So over time, we have seen, right, from the 70s, 80s, we are harmonized supply chain. We try to put everything together. Everything makes sense. We have a common process. But when we go to the 90s, when we start to digitize certain items, we are able to become transparent, meaning that in Singapore, when I manufacture something, I'm able to see what's happening in Europe. I'm able to see what's happening in the US, right? But as data grows, as we start to optimize operations and integrate them, you realize that there's too much information for individuals to take. It takes too much time to react. Previously, you can make decisions over a week, right? That's sufficient. But nowadays, especially during COVID period, we realized that decisions have to make, right? If not within the day, right? We will have to do it within hours, and that is not doable by crunching reports. You need to make it more intelligent, right? And I think that is something that we see, right? If we are able to share the poll results, right? By and large, we see that we want to be able to make faster and better decisions, right? 78% of the people here mentioned, hey, want to make faster and better decisions, and we need to do it in a cost optimized manner, right? And that is something that we see, and that is something, that's one of the key objectives that we want to achieve with your cognitive supply chain, to have intelligent workflows to make decisions faster and at a better business consideration. So this is where IBM wants to come in, right? We are looking at our own cognitive journey. We're looking at the solutions that we have built, and then we're looking at what our clients' needs, and we're putting it together, right? So we have a coherent story from a SME point of view, because we know what we need and we know what our clients need from that perspective. So with that, we have a lot of solutions, right, across the sector, whether more manufacturing focused, supply chain focused, or mainly IT, OT type of operations, right? But in summary, what we want to do is to make it intelligent workflow. We want to have a capability for the AI to be able to see in real life. We want it to be able to listen to important data, and we want it to take action based on that, right? We also want to look from a whole supply chain level. We want to be able to have a good data flow to be able to surface information, to surface recommendations, so that we know what is required, and we are able to have the AI to help us to think, to make recommendations, so that we can take actionable recommendations from there, right? And this is very critical in terms of technology adoption. What do we want to adopt? How can that help us to achieve our business results? Because at the end of the day, the end goal is to improve the business, right? So with that, I'm come to poll number 2, right? In poll number 2, we want to ask, right? There's a wide spread of solutions out there, and of course, it belongs to quite a number of family. If I can change, this is not the right poll, the next one, it might be the poll number 3. Which technologies are you? Yeah. Sorry, can we change the poll? Which technologies are you considering to transform? Yeah. Which technologies are you considering to transform your operations and manufacturing processes, right? Have you been considering things like, for example, AI, right? And AI is of course a very wide range. So whatever you can think of in that area, or is it analytics to do with the data? Are you looking at IoT to be able to obtain the sensor requirements? Are you looking at, hey, when I'm doing all this, how do I have a good future-proof IT infrastructure that can help me along with that, right? So as you go along with the poll, right, let's look at one portion about what we're looking at in Industry 4.0. So in Industry 4.0, one of the most commonly heard terms is, of course, cyber-physical systems, right? Because cyber-physical system is one of the basis of Industry 4.0, one of the key pillars of technology that we're looking at. And for cyber-physical system, the main thing is we are now able to convert something physical into digital. Of course, we are familiar with that. When I was in school, there's always holiday jobs where you can do data entry, right? But we are doing way more than that. We are not looking for people to key things into Excel. That is not efficient, right? What we want to do is to be able to make this physical to digital transformation faster and be able to work things in the digital world to generate a reaction, an outcome, a decision that affects the physical world, right? So one of the examples over here that we're looking at is to be able to look at unstructured data, right? Understanding unstructured data digitally, right? Making it automated instead of having someone to do that manual key in. So if you look at the pictures at the left, without me telling you what it is, as a human, you look at the top left corner, you know that these are apples. You look at the bottom left corner, you know that this group are oranges. It is not something that I have to tell you, right? And that is what we are now able to do with AI. AI is able to understand unstructured data by training it, giving it samples, giving it examples. They will be able to understand these are apples and these are oranges without doing traditional computer vision, which is doing by pixel and pixel comparison. So AI is smarter, is able to understand the unstructured data, right? So this allows us to do different type of automation in this case. So for example, in this image, right, that we see over here, we are looking at corn, right, and inspecting corn, what kind of defects there are in corn. And of course, corn in food manufacturing, right? It is not something that will always be the same, right? Because it's biological, you can't control it to that extent. But yet the quality of the corn determines the price of the corn, right? And it's impossible to inspect. Imagine one truckload, right? Like what you see at bottom left, it is impossible to inspect it, even manually, right? Even if you want to do a sampling check, your sample is not going to be statistically significant, right? But with the AI advances with deep learning, right, we're now able to understand and see and evaluate that, right? And that is something that is very important because with that understanding, you're now able to automate this process. So this is some new capabilities that we are able to adopt in, right? And that opens up a whole new field of items that you can automate, right, in whichever areas they are in. And this is something that can be considered. So another general type is, for example, in terms of recognizing real life objects, right? You put an iPhone in this location, or you put a CCTV in this location, you're now able to recognize people, right? So in this case, what they're doing is they're actually unloading coal from the ship, right? And we're unloading the coal, it takes around 2 to 3 hours to do that, and it's under the sun, right? And there's fatigue, and heavy machinery is moving around to speed up the process, and you will have accidents occurring from time to time, right? Especially when people get fatigued. So it's important to be able to a way to have understanding, right? To see if someone going too near to the vehicle. If so, right? In this case, for example, when I highlight in the worker in red, we can send an alert to a buzzer on the vehicle to sound a horn. So it's as though you have 2 people standing on the vehicle, just keeping an eye out to see whether anybody is encountering any issues coming too near, right? So this is how you can also work with unstructured data to then work that to provide a better solution, right, in terms of either improving our processes or to increase the safety. So these are just a couple of examples of how we can deal with unstructured data. But the key here is, right, in the cyber physical environment, the key is, hey, previously we have certain unstructured data that we have, right, images and videos that we couldn't understand, right? We couldn't digitize. We need someone there, right, to key that in. So for example, in this area, aircraft turnaround, previously you have engineers there standing, writing down, keying it into Excel, and then from there collating to understand what it is, right? So this is something that takes time and is painful. But now when you're able to digitize it, you're able to then structure it immediately and get insights out of it fast, right? So another example that we have is in terms of AI in quality management. So from the poll that has just been shown, right, a large number of you are looking at things like analytics. And I think that is something key, right, from what we want to do. So when we look at analytics, we are looking at beyond what we have been doing for the past 5-10 years. We're looking at something that is best in class, right, to do detection, to be able to get warnings earlier, right, to avoid the cost rather than just reduce the cost. So in manufacturing, of course, we are very familiar with ISO 9000 requirements for quality control. We know very well, right, SPC is one of the key items that we use for statistical control. But the problem with SPC is you need an engineer to analyze it. You need to analyze a lot of graphs. You need to analyze a lot of data in order to see that. And that often get lost in the churn, right, of things. And typically when you notice something, it might be 1 day, 3 days, 7 days down the road, right? And things has already happened. So in terms of people try to introduce rule-based detection, right, to be able to capture certain things faster. But with rule-based detection, we start to realize that, hey, it improves the items, but there's still a lot of data crunching and there's a lot of high false rates, right? And it's very hard to detect things that happens slowly. Anything that is going to be catastrophic, you can detect that. But things that slowly drifts off, it's hard to detect, right? So you want to be able to take a good quality advancement to look at that. So when we look at something like QAEWS, right, early warning system, we're trying to put automated analytics to look at things, to monitor the trend over time, to look at what's acceptable, what's unacceptable. So before something bad happens, before you start to incur scrap costs, right, or process wastage, you want to have alerts to say, hey, things are starting to look bad, right? Things are starting to not look good. Take action now, right, before it happens. So you're able to feed this, and this is automated such that all this information that comes in, right, through IoT devices and all, are able to be computed and be detected, and we can analyze the results. So this is one idea, right, in terms of analytics in action. How can we look at data, big data, analyze it, right, and surface the important things to the engineer, the process owner, to take action before things happen, right, and to see and make sure that we do that cost avoidance, right. Reducing scrap is always good. Eliminating it is even better, right. So this is something important. So as I end off with these two main examples about understanding unstructured data, as well as understanding big data, right? I4 transformation really consists of many items, right? And if we can pull up the poll for the mission critical items, right? The importance over here when we're looking at Industry 4, of course, is to understand what is your current state. From the current state, what then can we do, right? Where do you want to be? Because you're definitely not looking at doing everything at one time, right? It doesn't make business sense. It doesn't make process sense, right? Want to see what you want to achieve, what makes most sense for the business, and then look at, right, is it you want to understand unstructured data? Is it that you already have the data, but you need to be able to get insights to it faster to achieve your business result faster, right? So that is a journey that can be done, right? And it is a journey that we'll be happy to go with you, right? So with that, I end my sharing and I'll pass it back to Jess. Jess, to you.
Thanks so much, Ziwei, for your sharing. Next up, we have Vijay, right? Vijay is the General Manager of Smart Modular Technologies. Vijay, a 30 years veteran in the electronics industry, leads Smart Modular Technologies as the site General Manager and Senior Director. He was part of the startup team that worked on Smart First Asia footprint in Penang, Malaysia in the year 1998. Smart Modular Technologies is part of Smart Global Holdings, the Newark, California headquarter company, which comprises of business units that are leading designers and manufacturers of specialty electronics products and solutions focused on computing, memory, and LED lighting technologies. Vijay's enthusiasm with forward-looking digitalization, especially in the new era technology shift such as AI, augmented reality, data analytics, and many more, drove him in initiating and gearing smart readiness towards adopting Industrial 4.0 technologies. Now, let us hear from Vijay, where he will be sharing with us their organization digital transformation journey as a manufacturer. Vijay, please.
Thank you, Jess. Let me share my screen and good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, thank you for the opportunity to share our journey of digital transformation. Right? And let me start with just quick introduction of the company, right? And being established in 1988, we were actually started as a memory company. And right now, our footprint have changed so much that we are right now known as a lot more than a memory company, as a smart global holdings, right? And this is how we are structured today. Now, if you look at smart global holdings today, we are actually on 3 business units, right? And first of all, starting with the high performance computing, and then something that we acquired 4 years ago. And in the last 2 years, we have acquired also the smart embedded computing and wireless computing. Now, 3 of those combined to create international platform solutions and truly to serve our customers in mostly designing products and give them an improved competitiveness in a unified edge and core and cloud, right? Now, the following one, which beginning of this year, and as part of our diversification from computing and also memory, is also the acquisition of LED, Cree LED, beginning of this year, right? And they are specialty LED solutions, pretty much US based and with manufacturing in China. Now, the one that where we come from, or smart modular technology, the origin of it, a foundation of smart, is the memory solutions company, which pretty much encompasses of manufacturing, design, and development of memory and flash cards, right? And truly, we enable high performance computing through design, and through that is some of our customers that we work with, such as IBM and everyone else. I'm going to the next slide. All right, so this is our global footprint, and I'll go real quick on it, right? We are headquartered out of Newark, California, and we have manufacturing of whether it's DRAM, embedded computing, wireless computing on 3 sites right now, as far as smart modular is concerned. And not to mention, we also have the high performance computing assembly in Fremont, California. Now, Penang, pretty much where I reside, and as well as where our main factory is, focuses on mostly on embedded computing, wireless computing, and also memory solution products, right? And the rest of it is pretty much our design centers throughout the world, and also fulfillment centers. I'll go to the next slide. And this is just a quick write-up on Penang, right? And I'll skip the first 2 lines as I've explained that earlier, but pretty much it's actually the primary factory for SGH today. And we focused on probably the only site that manufactures memory, which is like pretty much flash devices and memory devices, and also computing and wireless computing, right? And part of that, we do a lot of R&D work as well as part of our regional leadership, right? Now the topic of the day, right? A digital transformation journey. Now, first of all, I think there has to be a compelling reason for many of us to transform into something else. And similarly for SMART, this is what transpired, right? So what truly challenged us, right? First of all, and I mentioned earlier, right? We are not into the commercial market. We are not a commodity manufacturer, right? We are into a niche, a custom design product, even though memory module is something that very commonly used in many devices, right? But however, we work with niche customers, right? And also giving them a computing, experience, right? Now, having said that, so that would really enable us to come up with a model which is pretty much, very high mix, and you would have a very low volume, to the extent in embedded computing world, we would even build 1 to 5 pieces, and you do a whole conversion of hours, right? So that's how this works, the way the model works. Now, what does it do, right? I mean, in order, every single time we convert the entire manufacturing floor into something different, something for a different product. Now, 2 things happen. Number 1, how fast do you convert? Because idling time is total downtime, right? And number 2, and as you convert to one product to another, and completely with different parameters, right? Now, everything, your specification to your quality level needs to be sustained the very first time. And given the fact that it's a high mix, and you probably built a product a month ago and probably now, so you need to be able to pull a true repeatability at the first time itself, because you have very small room. So in the past, before this whole IR4 engagement, right? So we use mostly manual work, checklists, people to make sure that the whole thing, the conversion takes a lot of time, right? So this was one of the biggest challenge we had really in terms of productivity, as well as also maintaining a quality. Now, time to market, I think earlier we picked it on it as well, right? Time to market and product life cycle, as we know, as the product gets, a much more, the technology evolution happens much more faster today. The time to market is much more key, right? And product life cycle have dropped significantly. What used to be 2 years of typically our kind of product, it's now dropped to 6 to 8 months. That die level change happens, right? Component, you have situations where components are not available anymore, that now they look for alternative components. So every one of those that you have to react to market really fast. So, and remember that engaging, having this product and manufacturing them is not the only thing, right? You need to engage with your suppliers, right? Who are probably a molding guy, right? Probably supplies with IO shells, right? And they need to react to and to design those, getting a tooling and all those things, right? Some of those things that took for us a long period of time before we get into the market, right? That normally we lost an opportunity with, in the market, right? So we knew that that's a couple of things that we have to react to. Product knowledge and training, which is pretty much, I mentioned earlier, as the technology evolves, and as we know right now, we have seen the product has become more miniature than ever before, right? In fact, in some it's almost impossible for humans to even do certain processes, such as inspecting a very minute component, right? So a couple of things of such, and also on top of it, training becomes such a key. I mentioned earlier, right? How how complex our model is, whereby your high mix requires people's memory, right? You can't expect people to remember things. So we used to have pages of instructions for people whenever they ship from one product to another, right? Now, on top of it, you always have Penang, as in Singapore, right? You have a very high turnover in terms of people, because this is it's an industrial market in Penang, and the job opportunities are pretty big, right? Now, in order for you to have consistently resources to support it, you have to have pretty good training, and every time you lose experiences, then you lose the knowledge as well, right? So the last one would be probably what I call as a push factor. Now, equipment have been also one of the reason why it was timely for the industry to move on, and we didn't want to be left out. If you look at the whole evolvement of industry happened like 5-6 years ago, but then as equipment manufacturers, production equipment manufacturers evolve, right, they start giving us features that we should be using. And we have seen in many cases where when you don't have enough exposure knowledge, this was not used to the full capability of it, right? So since the availability of machine and technology enable us to do it. So we engaged on it, and we had truly a message from the top, right? We had a change in our CEO, and when he came in, as you can see, one of the values that he created as a vision, right, is a highly digitalized, connected manufacturing operations. So that got us from top down to make sure that we have enough funding even to engage in such platforms, right, such as IR4, and was timely. Now, but I think the most significant event for us is the collaboration with IBM, right? Prior to IBM, the Industry 4.0 was just a jargon for many of us, right? I mean, we attended few seminars, right? However, but I think the real feel of it is, after a collaboration with IBM through our visits, right? And we'll show you later in the roadmaps how that happened. And those collaborations have helped us to give us a great exposure. I think we started with, Julian, and now Zive is pretty much our counterpart that we work with even until today on the collaboration. So that gives us an exposure that we are able to not transform just not the leadership, but also the entire company into something as through training programs, workshops, and all stuff. Yeah, right. And transformation to digital culture, right? That's something that we know that in order for you to drive something that in the past, we have heard so many culture changing methodologies such as lean and all those things, but you want to go into something like this where not many had the exposure and information. So we had to run through the entire factory, a digital culture, right? And expose this to every level of the company. And that helped us also to speed up the whole trend, because there are more and more people engaged right through that. And scalability, of course, right? As I mentioned in the 2 points earlier, you need to have people who can actually be scalable, and people who are able to do things that you require them to do as we move into the digital world, right? So a couple of things that we engaged on that I would like to speak about here. Now, the first one is just to give you an overview of how journey started, and the very first one is in 2018. As I mentioned, the IBM collaboration happened, right? And that's when the first ever design thinking workshop held in Singapore. And I had my entire management team right over there in Singapore. And we had a one-day workshop going through the pain factor through an agile methodology, right? And through that, we came up with list of things that we think that, like earlier I put in my challenges, right? List of things that we put in there. And then we start working on how the whole structure and also our vision and mission going to be, right? So with that, then we started the first project in 2018 as a mission-to-mission connectivity through the IoT connectivity. And I'll explain the future slides. And then the other ones is then we had the whole test platforms, being robotized, right? And using robots to do repetitive testing, right? And the third one was more additive manufacturing. I mentioned that's related to the time to market that I mentioned is now where 3D have helped us able to, have parts that we require from supplier for samples and prototypes fast enough, right? So that helped us in 2019. And we went to data analytics and still are, right? And then we went through the SPSS software with IBM, training that have helped us to get our reporting structures much more in place, right? I think earlier Juve talked a lot about it, right? And our flagship, right, which is really the Power AI Maximo, right? And that have been our key, our flagship project that That's the inspection of products that using a JEDEC spec and one of its kind. I have more elaboration on it later. And also right now in this year, we have been focusing on augmented reality, right? Truly on the areas of training, the areas of PM calibration, and as well as also manufacturing of and assembly of systems and mechanicals, right? And of course, the goal that we have, like, to really create a smart cognitive factory, by the 2024. All right. So very quick on the mission to mission. Literally, if for those who are familiar with PCBA industry, right? You're familiar with the mission and with the technology of surface mount technology, right? So one of the things I was celebrating earlier, every single time we were to manufacture, right, we will have to load components, and then you have to change every single parameters of each mission. That's the traditional way a few years ago, before the whole connective IoT and connectivity happens, right? So that takes literally for every single conversion of 45 minutes of no production at all, right? And secondly, also you'll have to run some trial run of 1 or 2 bots, printing them on the solder paste printers and running them as an evaluation and checking the parameters to make sure it's good, because these products are not cheap. These are expensive, especially the embedded parts, right? You don't want to make a mistake with it, right? So we used to have what we call the first article and all those things, but all of those were just solved by us just connect, as we move on in 2018, after we started to engage into the what do you call IR 4.0. We bought, first of all, we bought the machines that enable us to do this, which means we are enabled to connect your IoT devices. Next part is we connected all these machines, and it wasn't an easy thing because each of the machines has got its own makers. They were not all the same brands, right? So it's always difficult whenever you have different brands and get them connected. So we worked with a third party for an API, right? And have all of them connected. And today, from a 45 minutes, you'll be able to just convert the line and also have it operational, fully conversion, and it does transform into for the next product build in just 35 seconds, right? Just one scan and everything changes just like that, from conveyors, machine parameters, machine programs to everything, right? So the only thing you have to make sure that you efficiently do is loading the components, right? Which we're also working on a couple of automation for that, right? So this enables us not only to do a few things, that not only to produce much more effectively, but also helps us to do proper traceability, right? And also our ability to even look at PM and calibration, as all the components and all the nozzles and everything that parts in there are able to get into the able to what you call linked, and you get a trigger to make sure that we are actually solving the issues pretty quick, or trigger them pretty fast, right? Now I'll go to the next one, which is our flagship I mentioned earlier. So this is, as I said, back 10 years ago when we were building memory modules, it used to have a size that we will be able to use a 3x lamp, Luxo lamp, to actually inspect them, right? Now it has become so miniature today that most of the components on a board, you will not be able to inspect them anymore, right? So, and also the repeatability becoming, so there's a fatigue issue with people, all of those, right? So we worked with IBM, which was the Maximo, and you'll hear that, you heard it just now, and you'll hear more later in next presentation from other presenters, how the Maximo, which we call as a power AI vision system, right? That worked on, and helped us to work on, many different platforms and multiple form factors, right? So, and this, like the way we are able to do this is also, and it also gives us an edge, because we do server computers as well, right? And Penguin computing being high performance computing. So we use the IBM modeling engine, right? And then we inference them on a Penguin computing, and literally teach the machine today, the robot, as well as also the camera, how, just like how a human reacts, and using vision algorithm, right? So through that, today we are able to remove all inspection for all our memory products, and it's all done by robots in the factory, right? So due to lack of time, I'm going to go a bit faster. I hope everybody don't mind taking up questions later. Now, on top of it, we also did the task cobots, right? Which is literally, this is insertion that had a problem. We had operators just inserting into testers, and this one of the thing we see is the consistency of insertion. Insertion have created a lot of false calls, like in terms of failing just because the force that's being used and damaging other connectors and all the stuff, right? So what we did was, in order for us to have a better first pass yield, we actually had the handler cobots, which is in the form of robots, to insert them, right, and also be able to segregate between the pass and fail, and connected to a shop floor control that you'll be able to detect, right, those on the fly as well, right? So, and next one is very quickly on the smart AR, and as I mentioned, I think this is going to be one that's going to be rolled out much more than what we are talking about today, the augmented reality, because today you'll be able to fast track your training. Today I can have someone just joining today, and I can put an HoloLens on them or tablet, any form of devices on them, and they'll be able to perform a task just like as if a 10-year-old experience, right? So that's one of the advantage we had. Plus, also we have removed a lot of paper documents and using today the HoloLens and the AR technology today to even give instructions of what's the process next and how do you go about doing it, and also plus integrating them into a PIV that does self-inspection as well, right? So that's maintain a quality consistency as well, right? And data analytics, I think earlier we talked a lot about it. This is actually what we are using for many of those things. In fact, this engagement, while the rest of the engagement more operations areas, this engagement we have actually used them mostly for the business people and also as well as also our supply chain, even HR for the matter, right? So this data analytics through SPSS that we put 20 people into training, and they have helped us to look at multiple reports that today what you call as a repeater. I think earlier we gave an example of how you do an entry in Excel, right? Similarly, right? Any form of repetitive job that we could today using data analytics to actually create a dashboard. So many of those have solved our man-hour problem that we have find ourselves more effective right now, right? And other things very quickly, right? The experience of going into IR for digitalization gave us an avenue and also capability of looking at pandemic management, right? So while the whole world went into this, the very first week after the government announced about a lockdown and we had to follow an SOP and all those things, we had and people were using handheld scanners and we had our engineers already working on facial recognition, connecting them into our what do you call factory entry systems, right? And also be able to take the auto measuring and all those things. So the experience of going into digital actually helped us to get that, and we have done multiple projects just on pandemic management alone to keep people safe, right? And of course, integrating them into building management system. And the other one is volumetrics today, that we can put a box, any box of any size and any weight on just a platform that's shown in the photograph right there, and you'll be able to calculate for you the weight. And it is used for shipping because every single time, because of the variation in the size of what we ship, right? So we have IoT sensors that fixed in four different corners that will be able to give you all of those, right? And the rest of it is more commercialization that we had truly, because these are some of the platforms that we given us the avenue. While we do all of this with IBM, we saw an opportunity of creating new products ourselves, right? Which are some of those things like soil concentration, pH level measuring, IoT devices, and other agriculture applications, right? Not to mention now 3D printing that I mentioned earlier. And okay, so this is real quick on pockets of where the videos of where the action really happens, right? In what towards the smart cognitive factory, and you can see far left on the AR and on the top of it, and then Power AI Vision. And we also engaging in AR work on warehouse management in terms of how fast we can track and find components right on the huge warehouse, multi-floor warehouse, and also the smart machine to machine and rest of it. So as I said here, right, there are pockets of we are working on different pockets. However, our goal is to have all of them connected and create a smart cognitive factory by the year of 2024. Okay. And so just a very quick one on some. So these have given us a lot of lessons that I would like to share with the forum here, right? And I always believe that you have to believe in building solution, not buying, because buying one will probably solve an issue for temporary, but you will not be able to scale them. So there's a saying that I actually read somewhere, which I find it interesting, but when you buy a new technology, but then if the mindset of the company that operating it still the old operation methodology, then the machine is just a white elephant. It's just going to be a very expensive whole operations, right? And we built a culture, like we had a big time launching, and the IBM collaboration was the biggest launching we had. Other than that, we had multiple launching on every single thing to celebrate the thing. So celebrate what we have achieved as a digital transformation, right? So that engaged everybody into that, into the future, what you call future roadmaps that we have for multiple projects that we have, right? And also one of the thing that we have learned is while we had a flagship, that was our starting point. The Maximo PIV was our starting point, but we knew that if that's going to take a year to 2 years before we get completely done, and we're not going to do anything else, it's going to, the whole thing going to collapse because you're going to lose steam, right? So what we did was we created multiple projects, including short-term projects, that gave us a lot of motivation to keep going, and like what I said, how we connected the pockets, right? And then allow innovation. That one of the things that I mentioned, just now mentioned about, despite we are not in the agriculture, but we allowed those things as the engineers came up with a lot of ideas. We wanted to allow innovation so that, and at some point, looking at the whole platform, you'll know what to relate to yours and how many of those that you can actually innovate to take it into a new product if you are going to diversify to something else, right? And one thing that I've seen, a lot of people have asked me in some other forums I've spoken, like, it would have cost you a lot. But I think we shouldn't be afraid of it, because I think when you start building them internally, and if you have resources that you've trained well, and you know exactly what you want, and you're not buying solutions, well, I do think it's a manageable cost that would give you a lot of return. Now, with that, I would just end it with saying that the Industry 4.0 journey is actually an infinite game and not just a finite game. So it's not going to be a short-term thing that you're going to achieve, but surely if your focus is there, you will be able to achieve. And classically, the team that I have here is pretty much engaged, and we think we'll achieve what we want by the year of 2024. With that, thank you very much. And if there's a question, I'll take it later. Thank you. And over to you, Jess.
Thank you so much, Vijay, for your wonderful insights on your digital transformation journey. So a reminder to our participants, right? If you have any questions, remember to use the Zoom Q&A function to post in them. We'll address to them during the Q&A session after the speaker's presentation. Please also stay on with us till the very end. So because we'll be announcing some freebies at the end of the session, right? So now we would like to move on to our next speaker, Niraj, Asset Management Solution Leader at IBM APAC. Niraj is a subject matter expert, business partner enabler, speaker, and thought leader. He has more than 25 years of experience in asset-intensive industries. Niraj has taken on roles in business development, consulting, project management, as well as technical in various industry segments such as refineries, utilities, retail, manufacturing, mining, and oil and gas. Niraj, over to you.
Thank you, Des. So I'll start sharing my screen, and then we'll go from there. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Des, for that introduction. So without maybe further ado, I'll just go into the main theme for today, right? So we are talking about factory of the future. So the key challenges that we see when we talk to the customers are like high cost of rework in manufacturing because of the quality issues, and also the very high cost because of downtime, because downtime directly impacts our revenue. So of course, we cannot produce if our equipments are down. So that cost, of course, is extremely high. But in terms of high cost of rework, there could be multiple reasons, right? So if something or some defect is not detected in time and it reaches or passes somehow, the final inspection, then of course it causes ask for rework within the production line. And if somehow, the product reaches to the customer, then it's a very, complex situation wherein you might want to bear with the, warranty cost. And then if it's a large scale thing and a lot of items with defects go into the market, you might have to do a recall, which of course, the cost goes exponentially high, and it also impacts or tarnishes the image of the company, right? So the stakes are very high, and that is why we, always want to focus on, say, quality and how we can ensure And that's why the topic that I chose, like 0D. So if you're wondering, so 0D actually stands for zero defects and zero downtime. Right. So at this time, I would say maybe let's have a poll question to see what challenges do you see. So we'll see the results soon. Let's give a few more seconds for people to respond. Okay. Can we have the results, Des? Okay, so we see that the dependency on few experts, right? So that is the highest or the commonly faced challenge, right? Okay. Okay, so yeah, so that is, the pain or the challenge that you see maybe is something that can be addressed. And as Nicholas said in the beginning, right? So technology is an enabler, but definitely when you are on a transformation journey, you need the right technology to be successful. So in this view, what you see is a modernized, say, manufacturing facility. And of course, you saw when Vijay was presenting, how they have modernized their production lines. But the idea here is to basically detect and correct at the point of installation itself, right? So where the parts are being produced at each step, if we can do, the quality inspection, and that can reduce the overall defect rate and can improve the quality in a big way, right? And then as we just saw in the poll that dependency on few experts is a major challenge, and as more and more people we see retiring, that is going to be a huge problem, right? So in industries like oil and gas and utilities, we see that big time, but manufacturing is also not so far. So how can we reduce those manual inspections? And there are other challenges, again, very minute parts which cannot be inspected, with human eye, or maybe the consistency or accuracy. There are several issues, right, in that as well. And we can use a computer vision, to address that challenge. And when you tie up this solution with also to address, your downtime problem, wherein we can actually predict and correct the failures before they actually occur, right? So impending failures can be detected or predicted earlier, and then you can take, corrective action to avoid those failures. So that is where, our pursuit for 0D, zero defect and zero downtime talks about. So we use AI-based, models or computer vision to detect those defects, and similarly AI machine learning models to predict the failures in future, and then again, you can avoid them from happening. So the technology or the solution we are talking about is Maximo Application Suite, and there has been a lot of improvements over past few years. And of course, it's an end-to-end solution which is pre-integrated and address a lot of issues. But for today's session, maybe we are mainly focusing on our visual inspection part, MVI, and also the predict part. So those are the things that we want to focus on, today. So the visual and the predict, only these two. But yes, it has a lot more capability than, this is one of the unique, solution in the market, which actually caters to the end-to-end, scenario in terms of managing the manufacturing operations or moving towards Industry 4.0 or smart manufacturing, right? So from a usage flexibility perspective, of course, you can use and move, from one solution to other, and expand as you move forward in your journey. And from a cloud deployment perspective as well, it is quite flexible in terms of the deployment options that we provide. So you can deploy it on any cloud of your choice. So this is how we see the journey. So of course, most of the manufacturing companies, they have some or the other system in place to take care of their assembly line or the equipments, which is done through the managed piece. But the rest of the things that you see on this map are like monitor, health, and predict, which talks about our predict journey and how we can, predict and avoid those failures. And also visual inspection thing, wherein we can monitor continuously, and then infer in terms of detection of those defects, and then again catching them before they reach the market. So just to go a little bit deeper into what Maximo Visual Inspection is all about. So the thing is that the value that we bring through this solution is that it's very fast, easy, and accurate, and it doesn't require you to be a data scientist. So your subject matter experts in the company itself, they can actually build and deploy those models and can maintain them as well, right? So you don't need to know any coding or be a data scientist. These are like, the platform actually provides pre-built models that you can just train, label them, train them, and then deploy them. And any subject matter expert actually can do that, right? So it's a very handy tool and very easy to use. I'll show in the next screen like how quickly you can deploy it. The other thing is the ROI is very fast. So we are not talking here, of course, when we say building a solution, it's like you have a good booster or starting point to start from, to use those deep learning models, and then you just train them based on your use case, what you want to address, right? So the ROI is pretty fast, wherein you can avoid all those costly reworks, right, or failures. So that is what we are using. That is how we are using the AI based models and deep learning models under this solution. So these are like very simple steps how, and this is actually a screenshot from the solution, the Maximo Application Suite. When you launch this, you just create the data set. So what we ask is some sample images of the problem that we are planning to address, and then we prepare the data in terms of the labeling the data, that what kind of defects, where to look for, is it a hotspot or a loose connection or missing component, all those things, the type of use cases that we want to address. And then we train the model. So while we train the model, again, system does it automatically, and it also is able to enrich your data in terms of taking or creating additional data from your sample pictures, like flipping them or taking from different angles, all those things. So the accuracy of model is improved, and then of course you can deploy the model. While deployment, of course, you can do it on the edge as well. So you can have separate cameras or edge devices where you can export and deploy this model, and then the inference also can be done on the edge devices. So very quickly on the predict as well. So so that was more on the detecting the defect and correcting it at the point of installation. Now going to say predict, how predict helps is like, what we provide is again AI based prediction models, which helps us in predicting different things. It's not always the failure date that we predict. What we are also interested in is also how the asset is deteriorating, right? So basically the and then the failure probability trend, that what is the probability of failure on which root cause analysis, all those prediction models are provided under this solution. And then the capability to build your own prediction models, right? So you can also build your own models using this platform and then deploy them. And again, it integrates with, so in case you identify some defect using the VI, the earlier solution that I talked about, you can always feed that input under the same platform to correct it or to send someone to fix it, even if it is a supplier or if you outsource that activity, or your internal maintenance team who can have a quick look at that. And similarly, predict also helps us to identify the problems before actually they arrive. So you get good lead time in terms of planning things and avoiding the high cost of repair if it is a breakdown situation, right? So we use underneath like Watson machine learning model and Watson Studio to build those models. This is again a screenshot from the application itself, that how the predict actually shows you the data on the screen, wherein you see that all the last work order, when it was last repaired or when was the last inspection done, assuming that it is today's date, you see that the next PM is due down the lines after a few weeks, but the predicted failure is happening before that. So this is the right time where you should take action rather than waiting for the next PM. So if you do not have this kind of visibility or a solution that can do this, then it will be a breakdown situation where we will have to face that breakdown and then costly repair and then of course loss of revenue, right? So those are the things that we can avoid using this predict kind of solution. So now, before going to, so I have a, so one case study, of course, you already heard directly from Vijay, where they are using, a similar solution in their manufacturing facility. I have another story to share with you, but before we go there and play the video, I'd like to have another poll. This is just in case you are interested to know more about this solution.
Niraj, in view of time, right, maybe the video, we will share the link with the participants after that to take a look.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, so the poll has been launched.
Okay. Sure. So then maybe we can share the video with you where you can see how customer of ours is using this solution to address all the challenges end to end in their manufacturing facility. Yeah. So that was a quick one, but yeah, feel free to contact us if you need to know more. Yeah. Thank you. Over to you, Zach, once you finish the poll.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Niraj, for your presentation. Next up, right, we have David, Head of IoT at SNI System, to share with us a practical roadmap to start or accelerate your digital transformation. David has held leadership position with more than 25 years of IT, IoT, and technology experience in business, commercial, sales, GTM, and people management. He provides consulting on go-to-market strategy, customer success and advocacy, people and talent integration, and works across all business units to enable growth. David, over to you.
Thank you, Jess. Just let me share my screen. Right, good afternoon, everyone. I think we have heard previously, I think the three speakers touching on some of the practical digital transformation modules. And what I want to do here is sort of to wrap up and say, how do we actually look at some of the journey? And whilst technology is abundant out there, and you heard from our previous speakers, there are a lot of really good kind of methodologies and processes out there. But I think we just need to have a sort of overview of what really do we look at to transform and to sometimes may not be accelerate, but to say how do we add on and move on along as we go with the sort of business in a manufacturing environment, or even at the front end with your client. Just a nutshell, I think for SNI, we do serve many verticals. We have a lot of customers, and we do particularly now very much in the focus into the operation technology as well. So this gives us not only the IT that we have been doing for the last 20 years, but also moving into smart areas of IoT with operational technology that can sort of bridge the gap between IT and OT. That's where I think digital transformation goes along, and I think it sort of dovetails into the government's effort to look at the smart city projects as a whole. Generally, I think there are four areas of how we look at adoption acceleration. We look at how IT, OT fits your environment, what a focus area, where are your strategic partners in the manufacturing chain, supply chain, and we know that now, globally there is a lot of demand and there's a lot of stress on supply chain. Not only manufacturers are also looking at raw materials and things like that. So I think there are a lot of change in, not really change in landscape, but a bit more like at the moment, how do we deal with some of these obstacles and challenges? And what are the core competencies that the company wants to focus on so that we can bring on some of these digital augmentation, right? So it may not be a throw and buy new, but we look at how we can transform and use old and add on new as we go without really bursting the budget. Secondly, how do you actually go to your segments and your verticals? So you're in a manufacturing, you have a lot of clients, and the clients actually in some of these layers, obviously the consumers will be at the top of the food chain. But then how do you actually zoom down to your manufacturing efficiencies, and then you have also mid and long-term client contracts that you need to meet. So I think these are some of the bases that I think a lot of manufacturing customers need to secure, so that I think they can sort of move along and not have too much impact on operational kind of deliveries as well as a financial impact. And also I think we look at life cycle management, pre to post. I think we heard about Maximo as asset management platforms. So how do you accelerate legacy data points into something that is more insights to your environment, right? So if I think you're managing a manufacturing environment, there is a lot of insights. And we talk about smart manufacturing, but what is smart actually? Does it culminate to a business outcome for you? Save money and higher productivity, or trying to solve a particular problem within your chain of manufacturing and things like that. So, and last but not least, I think we look at platforms and understanding what components and how do you position some of these digital platforms. And some are maybe a bit beyond the current environment, and some are more purpose-fit. So I think you just need to realize what are the areas that you fit into your environment. Of course, map into your business outcomes. I think generally there's been a lot of OT in the past 20 years. Manufacturing has just gone along very steadily, in a very stable, very proven environment, manufacturing, right? But I think we look at how operational technology has also evolved to integrate with IT. And so if you look at how from the layer of getting data from sensors into platforms, and then look at data insights models and how do they translate into analytics and then further up into the IT value chain. So whilst a lot of manufacturing have a lot of IT platforms, the OT is not catching up. So I think we also need to say, how do we accelerate OT with IT together to look at data quality and then look at process quality, but ultimately it's still a business outcome for the company. So I think if there's no business outcome, then the typical kind of transformation may derail and may not bring out any ROI for the particular project. Lastly, I think we look at how in that whole decision value chain of implementing a digital transformation, there are many stakeholders, right? I think we all are familiar with. You have different decision makers, and obviously sometimes at a bigger level, the CEO of the company has to endorse. But generally at the operational level, the stakeholders have to say, okay, what are the decisions we're going to take? What is it in it for the entire process versus the business challenge? And then you also have the financials, the financial folks will come in to say, what are your governance? What are the risk? And do we need additional funds and resources and things like that? So I think there's a lot of decision making throughout the whole process. But I think generally, if you look at how we want to do it, it's putting a dedicated task force and then looking at how some of these can overlap into some of the common problems from exploring to initiating to sponsoring to leveraging. So I think all requires a lot of think through in terms of business and risk, the ROI, time and resource and effort, and also of course, last but not least, whether the company has that budget and that time frame or that bandwidth to actually accelerate some of this digital transformation. So with that, I think I just want to give a more summarized view of what the last three speakers have brought forth, and also to sort of summarize to say, look at business outcomes and look at what digital technology can enable you, because there's a plethora of technology out there, but they're all enablers ultimately. So it is where your business outcome is and where you wish to attain in your digital transformation. Yeah. With that, I'll just wrap it up, and we may have a poll now.
David, we will go to the Q&A. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, thanks, David, for the wonderful insights, right? Now we are moving on to the Q&A. We'd like to invite all the speakers back onto the screen. The Q&A will be moderated by Nicholas. If you have any questions, please submit them using the Q&A function. Nicholas, over to you.
Thank you, Jess, and thank you to all our panelists for their amazing presentations. And just to give a quick summary, I think amazing presentations from what we hear from IBM, from both Neeraj and Zui. Essentially, I'm hearing that it's really building a robot from visual, which is taking in visually, translating it into data, and creating a brain using AI to crunch that data, to use it efficiently and intelligently. And I learned a new term from Vijay today, COBOTs, right? Human collaborative robots, very good. So we heard from Vijay also about his experience in the transformation journey. I think that was amazing. And David topped it up with, most important thing, in every journey, you have to align what you're doing with to achieve your business outcomes. If not, your big boss may not be very happy with the investment. So maybe to start the Q&A, I'll take one question from the audience, and this was raised when Vijay was giving his talk. The question was how to pick a right IoT platform. Which one is widely adopted in SG, like LoRaWAN? Vijay, if you can, thank you.
Well, I think that was more of an Nilesh question, but anyway, see, in our case, right? In our case, most of it, as we are also producers of IoT, right, as wireless computing, so we confine to using our own, right? So I think I may not be able to answer that question if you're looking at from the open platform. We haven't used anything outside what we make, but maybe Neeraj, you may, I'm not sure you can help.
Yeah, so what I would add is that you should look at the overall capability. So not only just using, as many speakers said, as a technology, which platform helps your case end to end, and how you can leverage that platform to create more value for your company, right? So look more from a future and a wider spectrum of what you can achieve with the same platform, rather than going in piecemeal approach and having multiple systems in place. So I would suggest invest in a bigger platform which can cater to most of your needs in a single place.
Great, thank you. And perhaps another question that was talked about in the closing by David is about aligning it to business goals. And sorry, Vijay, I'll go back to you again, because I think a lot of you are the end user, and a lot of people would like to hear from you. It's about during your digital transformation, where are the areas that you think helped you to differentiate yourself? What were the success metrics that you use to measure the success of that transformation itself, whether it's efficiency or cost or revenue? Vijay, maybe you can share.
Sure. So we put the technology as the first one, right? The technology migration, and as you could see. So again, going back to the slides that presented, talking about the pain factor, through the agile methodology we came up with, and we looked at this. What was the compelling thing that and I mentioned earlier, how the efficiency. I mean, think about in a day, if you do 5 conversion, I'm just giving an example, right? Five conversion on a line that's supposed to run 24 hours, now you run for 16 hours, right? So we had those kind of factors that picked in. So we looked at all the pain factor from it, used the tech available. See, the problem is we knew from day one that was going to be the case, like 45 minutes, but then we didn't have the technology to evolve, right? So now when the minute it was available, right, and we saw the opportunity of one, the equipment maker have the features enabled, and we, with the exposure that we had through multiple sources, including IBM, that we are able to engage on those. So I would say it will be, in our case, measurable is mostly on the efficiency part of it, right? Which eventually, will give you a cost efficiency as well, right? So.
That's right. Right. Thank you, Vijay. And I'm told that in the interest of time, we will do one last question. And I think this is also a non-technical question, but a very key enabler for any organization to start the journey itself. And this was mentioned by you, Vijay, and I will open this question to all panelists, because the question is really this. Technology is an enabler, and obviously IBM has great facilities, great tools to help you achieve that. But in any start of a company's transformation, you mentioned culture, right? You mentioned digital culture. You mentioned top-down support to support that transformation. And you also talk about structure, organizational structure that may have to change. And I'll open this to panelists. What do you think are the core pillars or the foundations for any organization to start this digital transformation that will ensure its success? Maybe I'll leave it open.
Maybe I
can go. Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
So
go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe I'll take this first, right? So we do look at many different aspects to make sure it's successful. But the key thing is you need to have a good vision, right? A good end goal in mind, right? Your end goal is always about your business, how to improve that. Only through that can you get the buy-in to do whatever you need to do, right? But to get a buy-in, you need from, like what's already mentioned, right? You need the buy-in from management, right? Is this the vision? What do you want to invest in it? What can you achieve out of it? Commit to it, right? then look at the tools that you have to go with to do that. But at the same time, we also have to remember the people on the ground who are doing that, the engineers, the developers, right, the operations team, right? Many of the times when you approach this, the first thing they come to do is, oh, IBM is here, we want to improve our processes, we want to reduce your workforce, right? That's not what we want to do. What we want to do is to make sure that as part of this transformation journey, you need to upskill them. Your workforce is your most valuable asset out there, right? Upskill them, keep them up to times, right? Reduce the amount of workforce you need over time, right? Because they are doing their work more efficiently, right? They are doing more value-added stuff, right? So that is very important that the vision is there, not just with the management team, right? That initial buy-off is important, but also with your SMEs, because they are the one that will bring the most value using the tools that we can provide.
Thank you, Zui. Anybody else want to add to the discussion?
Sure.
Yep.
I can add to that, right? I know there's a nice saying about culture could eat strategy for breakfast, right? I mean, so if you're not, I mean, if you don't drive a culture, that nothing. So when we did this, first thing we did was, how do you drive and why do you drive a culture? That's because you want people to get engaged, right? Everybody, when it has to be top down, bottom top, right? But you want engagement, and in order for us to you have the engagement, you need to run this through the entire organization to create a culture, and we put a lot of emphasis into it, right? And having even teaser week to week, running through the factory, right? And then had a big launch of what we had as collaboration and so PIV and every single thing, and people start talking about it, right? And I believe that's the core, and along with that, then you come up with all the themes that, and again. The secondary part to that is you need to also know what's your skill set level, right? I mean, you can dream to fly to the moon, but you got to know whether you have the right resources and also the skill set, right? So both of those combined. And by the way, I think the culture drove it automatically, because once the culture is that, everybody start even signing up for data analytic classes, right? Became data scientists, right? I mean, so, and I remember one of the IBM guys, Julian, I'll quote him here because he had been more like my guru here. So I know, seriously, and he said this, that, you know what, even your operators can be data scientists, and fair enough, right? Today they are. So I would still put cultures, the first one, driving it the right ways is the key to this.
Okay, great. Thanks, Vijay, for sharing. Anyone else? If not, Jess, I think we are just about time, and it's very heartening and very, so proud that we are all putting people at the center of this transformation. Most importantly, even from a giant like IBM, you have the people at heart, and certainly align with, making sure we take care of our people in our digital journey, right? So thank you so much, panelists. Amazing views, and I'm a bit worried that when Ziwei said 4.0 is here, but 5.0 is coming very fast. Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen. All right. So thanks to Niraj, Vijay, David, thank you. Ziwei, thank you so much. Back to you, Jess. Thank you.
Pleased to be here.
Yeah. Once again, thank you to all our speakers, and we would like to thank our partners, IBM and SMI System, for supporting this webinar. We hope the session has been useful and you have gained valuable takeaways. For those questions that are not answered in view of time, we will actually take it offline and provide you a response after the event, right? So we are not coming to an end yet. We have some freebies to share, right? So I'll be launching poll questions over the poll right now, the Zoom. So participants, you can help us to select your answers and then, submit them accordingly. So first up, right, this is a complimentary I4.0 consultation session where manufacturers, right, it will help you to outline, your current state, and determine growth objectives, identify problem statements and pain points, and provide recommendations. So if you are interested in this complimentary consultation session, please help us to complete the poll, right? Just give you 10 seconds more, right? All right. Now we have another freebies to share, right? So as a token of appreciation for all our participants here, right, who have stayed on with us till the very end, we will actually like to provide this token of appreciation. There's a $20 F&B voucher along with a set of NetScan masks, which will be given out. So you will be able to see another poll on the screen now. So if you'd like us to, contact you to arrange the delivery of this token of appreciation, please submit your response in the poll. And of course, after the event, our partners will be in touch with you to make the necessary delivery arrangement if they have opt-in for that, right? I'll just give you a few more seconds to complete it, right? And of course, if you are interested, right, to find out more about other Detec activities, you can also scan this QR code on the screen to find out more on our upcoming programs. Lastly, we would also like to invite participants to follow Detec social accounts to keep up to date with our advocacy position article, industry research report, and of course, the upcoming activities, right? So thanks a lot for everyone who attend today, and we hope to see you soon again in the next session. Take care and stay safe.